The Whole Person is an independent living center. It is a fantastic organization. We do a lot of peer counseling. A lot of our services are geared around the needs of people with disabilities who want to achieve or maintain independent living circumstances. We're all about empowerment and helping people succeed.
The Whole Person made a huge difference for me. They're here for me. I can count on them. They do so many different things for me. I just don't know what I would do without them. I've learned a better way of dealing with things. So going through these Whole Person classes is really helping me in every way. You know, with my thinking and my goal setting and just life, period.
We've got to get the public to understand that people with disabilities are just that, people, just like everybody else who happen to have disabilities.
One of our missions at the Whole Person is to make sure that people with disabilities have a chance to be seen as contributing members of society, as taxpayers, as people who are not dependent, but who are in control of their own lives and their own destinies.
Watching someone finally really get it, when they've heard their whole life, I could never live on my own, and they're out living on their own. That's probably one of the biggest things, to see people who didn't think they could ever speak up for themselves, actually speaking up for themselves.
The Whole Person is one of the best organizations to work for. It started in 1978 by a gentleman called Paul Levy. He died 2 years ago.
The mid to late 70s, a group of people with disabilities banded together, and they talked about how their community did not quite understand what the disability experience was. They were tired of not being able to get jobs. They were tired of not being able to get access to just about any part of the city. Now, this was before the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the government buildings weren't accessible, the schools weren't accessible, UMKC wasn't accessible, none of that.
I became involved because my disability started out on the farm in Wamego, Kansas in 1975. So I was at Rehab Institute for my physical therapy, and I met Paul Levy, who was looking for volunteers at the time, 1976. 1978, he applied for a grant from the Department of Education, and when he got it, he hired staff.
When I was an employee of the organization back from 82 to 87, I was the volunteer coordinator. And back when I was on staff, we had 8 employees, counting myself.
Well, I think the biggest thing to know is if you're someone with a disability, you don't have to be just sitting at home, not doing anything. We have people with all sorts of disabilities doing things that they have a lot of fun with.
I live an active lifestyle. By that, I do just about what anybody else has done or doing. A lot of times I do it differently. Like I dress myself. A lot of people, when they see it, they're like, whoa, that's cool. Here's my coach. A lot of times life is just figuring out what you want and how to get there, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else's story. I drive a car, no special controls on my vehicles. Freaks people out. And so when I'm driving, this is pretty much my little setup here. I got an extension because I'm short. That's about all it is, and I operate it like this.
When Centers for Independent Living were first visualized, this concept, which we call consumer control, was a fundamental part of the beginning of Centers for Independent Living. And you don't find, and I'm not aware of a whole lot of other social service agencies, or maybe even any social service agencies, that are run by the people they're designed to help. And I think that's a very unique concept, and it's something that says that the best expert on a disability is not necessarily a doctor, not necessarily a nurse, not necessarily a social worker, but a person who is actually living successfully with a disability.
You know, someone who's had a recent accident and life is going to be different, unfortunately, forever. But there's life after accidents. And so a lot of the peer counseling allows us to show others that, hey, there is a future, there is opportunity. Life is different in one sense, but life does not have to be different in the sense of setting goals and having success.
We don't go in and tell them what to do. We actually help the consumer learn how to do that. So eventually we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. We also do independent living skills training, which is someone might want to learn how to cook in their own home. They might want to know what kind of adaptive equipment is best to do in their home and then how to use that equipment. They might want to learn how to use the bus system, and so we go out and we help them to learn that. Budgeting. It's only limited by what the person wants to do.
Sydney wanted to tell Mom, she wanted to tell her everything. She wanted to do things, and it was so hard coming home from school and running around and couldn't tell Mom what she wanted. She's pointing, screaming, crying, Mom's screaming at her, and now she's just a totally different kid.
Whenever you have a child with a disability, especially a communications disability, that's almost overwhelming. And taking that sign language and moving it into the home and then teach the family. That's who needs to learn.
I mean, I love it that the communication between us is better. Because it was, I mean, I was stressed. I was.
Taking a child that, was, screaming because she didn't have a way to tell her mom, I'm hungry, or I'm tired, or, I really want, that Barbie doll. And now she is, and Mom is communicating, and they're like, it's like this, I don't know, it's like this bridge that's been built. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best part of my job, is seeing that bridge of communication built.
There are thousands of people in nursing homes that want to get out. I don't know anybody that really, really wants to go into a nursing home. Look at all the older people who are becoming, as they grow older, they find that their homes are no longer accessible to them, right? It's a little bit harder to walk up those steps. And we're not prepared for it. We have the whole baby boomer population. They're going to have to move out of their homes. The homes they've lived in for 20, 30, 40 years are no longer accessible. And we need to be thinking about that. The whole person has been serving the Kansas City area for more than 30 years. And we rented on many different places in town and finally decided we need our own space.
Right now, we're kind of scattered between satellite offices in Gladstone, Independence, here, as well as Prairie Village. But in a year and a half or so from now, we'll be in our own building, and that will be that's one thing we're all looking forward to being all in one place. It makes a much better team spirit, a much better efficiency in terms of all of us working together and seeing each other all the time versus on the phone or email or things like that.
This is an opportunity for us to show our community that a historical building can be renovated so that it is 100% accessible to anybody with a disability. It's a huge challenge for us because there are so many factors that have to be taken into consideration. But if we can't do it, how can we expect our community to do it?
The biggest changes I have seen is the freedom that the disabled individuals have won through the American Disability Act that was passed in 1990. That law gives us freedom to express ourselves and to demand the same rights that a non-disabled person enjoys. To go to work, to have access to everything, because unless you have those kind of freedoms, you're not independent.
You could go down this hallway and find any number of people who have had any number of setbacks, any number of things that might have daunted a lesser person. But I think if you're going to look at the story of the whole person, the essence of what the whole person is, we're survivors. We're not going away. We're people with disabilities who are not going to ever give up. And I think that is the fundamental heart of who we are and what Centers for Independent Living do.
I'm done.
And President Obama seems to have found a